Hey, welcome back. So today we're going to go ahead and make some color ID maps that we can use from our model in Maya and then transfer that model into other software to do our texturing. And this software that we're going to use for this project is actually going to be Quixel Mixer. So that way we can take advantage of the fact that it is free through Epic and through Unreal Engine. And when we get it done, it's going to look something like this. Hopefully I can find where I put it. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Let's shut that one off. There we go. Sorry about that. So it's going to look something like what we see behind us here. Now again, this is a simple model. We don't have a lot of complex geometries in it. And then we also did not make a higher resolution model that we can then bake down into a lower resolution model with all of the details of a higher resolution model. That is for a future class at some point. But for this one, you can see that in Quixel Mixer, we're able to go ahead and put in multiple textures across all the different surfaces, and then we'll be able to use this model, put it back in Maya, do some rendering in Maya. We can also put this model into Unreal Engine, which is ultimately what we're going to end up doing. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to do. There are a couple things we need to do to prep our model before we do the color IDs. We are going to go ahead and take all of these pillars that we have here, and I know what we did the UVs individually, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to put them all onto one UV. That will limit the number of materials that we need to use and number of UV sheets that we're going to end up needing inside of Quixel. We're also going to put all of our window frames and door frames on the same UV as well, and then the door and the doorknob will go on the same UV, so that it'll cut down on the number of UV output that we're going to end up using, which is something like this. And you can see this one, I don't actually have the door frames and the window frames combined. There are separate ones. I want to combine those since they'll work pretty well. They're pretty simple models anyway in this model, and we're using the same material on all of them, so it makes sense to kind of put them all on the same one. And we're going to use the same color ID for them as well, so it makes a lot of sense. The door and the doorknob, because we have combined those, it'll make it easier to be able to set those up. And yeah, I think that, and then of course the pillars, which are right here, all the pillars are the same material, so it makes sense to put them on the same UV sheet so that we can, when we export everything in a color ID, it works out pretty well. So let's go ahead and I'm going to minimize this. We're going to jump into our model on Maya, and let me go ahead and get my big head out of the way so we can concentrate on all of this. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started on getting our UVs set up so that they're all on the same UV for us. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and do the pillars. So I'm going to bring up my UV editor and take a look at my pillars. Right now they're all stitched together, all in one piece here. Exactly the way I want them. You can see that they're here. So I'm going to expand down on my house. I'm going to find my pillars. I'm going to select all of these pillars. And they're going to show up right here. But right now they're all laying on top of each other. What I want to do is I want to go to my UV shell. I'm going to select them all. And I'm going to go to Modify. And then in my layout, I'm going to open up my option box for my layout. This is my current settings. I'm going to go ahead and just reset this real quick. The only thing that should change is the fact that my texture resolution changed. It was set at 2048. As we can see down here, 2048 is when I want to do my resolution at. I want my packing resolution at the same. And then I also want to put some padding between my shells and my tile paddings. So I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one here. Just like that. And that should get us all ready to go. Everything else should be left alone. And now I'm just going to go ahead and lay out my shells. Okay. And now when I look at this, go to my UV shell, they're all laid out all 8 of my pillars, and here are the tops and bottoms, which we're really not going to see the tops and bottoms of those pillars, but this is now set up as my UV for my pillars. Okay. All right, so that's one thing down. The next thing I wanted to do was I was going to do the door setup. So let me go ahead and save what I have so far. File, save scene. Now, if you're using Control S to save, that's great. Just make sure you don't accidentally just hit the S. We don't want to set any keys. Sometimes when you go to clear things, you may end up with an error down here that says something's receiving an input. That input is probably an animation input. Once you track it down, you can go ahead and clear the keys. If you don't know how to do that, drop me a note if that's an error that you're getting, and I'll walk you through the process of fixing it. Otherwise, we'll just continue on with what we have right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move my UV out of the way for a second so I can find all of my window frames. I'm going to minimize this here, open my window frames up. I want all my window frames, and I'm also going to want to find my door frames. Okay, and also my sliding glass door frames. So here, these are located in this section here. All right, so and I can see that I'm going to end up with a little bit of an issue because of my window glass here. Later on, when we go to export this, I don't want to export my windows with the rest of the model. We don't need to export that material into Mixer because we're not going to do anything with the window glass in Mixer. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to grab these windows and I'm going to take them and I'm just going to put them back on the larger group for the sliding glass. I'm just going to drop those up onto there. And let's see here. Oh, I did that one already. This was what I wanted. There we go. So now I've got my frame here, my door sliding frame here, and my other door frame sliding there. So I think we've got everything broken apart so we can get to it. So I'm going to click on the first one, hold my control key to select these two here. And I want my door frame, okay? And I want to make sure that, okay, my door frame is separate from my front door, so that's good. And then I also want to select all of my window frames down here. Now again, all of these are piled up on top of each other in this UV. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to UV shell. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to go to modify again, and since I already have my layout set up, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the layout button, and it's going to automatically calculate it for me and set everything out. Now these aren't, you know, if I have one window that I want to do something specific to, these UVs are kind of mixed and matched all over the place. We have to go digging for them, and you know, that might be a little bit of an issue if you're trying to do something special. But again, this is a kind of an entry-level beginning type video for you to tutorial for you to see how the process goes from start to finish, and we'll get harder and fancier in future videos, hopefully. So, all right. So anyway, we got them all lined out. Again, that's how we want it, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay. And now let's go ahead and minimize that, and then the next thing I want to do is my front door. So I'm just going to select my front door, and with it selected, let me find my UVs for it again. My front door, select it, and my doorknob and my door are on the same sheet. They certainly are not to scale. So again, we're going to go ahead and use the UV shell, select them all, and then I'm going to go to modify, and I'm going to go ahead and do layout for that. And now it puts everything to the correct three-dimensional scale, as well as puts it all on one sheet. All right, so now we've got our UVs all laid out. So that gets us started. Now what we need to do is we need to start applying materials to our different pieces of our UVs, because these materials are what's actually going to be read by the Quixel Mixer software and kind of break it apart so that we have all these different pieces of the house that we can import and then apply these different textures to. So the way I did this is the front door is kind of the first one I started with, and since I have it already selected, here in my UVs and over here in my scene here. I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to go ahead and go down and assign a new material to it. And that assigned new material, I'm going to assign an Arnold. I'm going to call it an AI standard surface. And of course that popped up way out of the way here. And since I've done some history, it's all the way down here at the bottom. You can right click on these little arrows up here and you can get to what you're looking for pretty easily. I'm just going to pick this AI standard surface right here. And I'm going to name it front door. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go ahead and find my output and do the same thing. Okay, there it is. We got that one all set up. And let's see here. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and do the front door setup. All right, I did the front door already. We're going to go ahead and move that out of the way. I'm going to do the window frames real quick. And the door frames. And as you start to select them, you should start to see your everything populate back in there. And let me just double check to make sure I got that front door, because now I'm looking at it going, did I get that? Yes, I did. They're in their own locations there. Okay. So again, here's the front door. Everything is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to assign a new material for this. Again, we're going to do Arnold, AI standard surface, and we're going to go ahead and name this. I'm just going to call this frames, and it'll be both window frames and door frames. Just something simple. Select the AI standard surface 1SG or the little node down here. It's the same thing. Control V, and I renamed it frames 1 now. So now they're both named. Okay, so you kind of see the naming convention. I'm going to just talk through the rest of it, and I'm going to let you do that since we already have all of the things set up. So we're going to do that for the roof. Don't forget, you need to select all of your pillars to do all the pillars on the same UV. You're going to do that for the floor, and you're also going to do that for the walls and for any external patios, decks, or whatever else you're going to have. And that will get you all set up. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video, let you work on those things. When we come back, I'll show you what I have, and then we'll go on to the next step, okay? All right, so I'm back now, and I've got my Hypershader open, so that's this little circular ball up here with a little white dot in the middle. That'll open this tool up. And I'm just double checking. I've got my floor, my window frames and door frames, my front door. I'm not worried about my glass. I've got my patio porch. I've got my roof, my walls, and my pillars. So that's everything that's in my model. Okay, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and close everything up into my house model here. Select it. Make sure I'm in object mode. Okay, and what I want to do is, at this point, we're getting ready to do our ColorId. And we're going to make a bunch more materials that we're going to apply to the house itself. And those are going to be color materials that we're going to apply to the duplicate house we're about to create. So with the house selected, hit Control D. And we're going to duplicate it, okay? And what we can do is with house 1, I'm going to select it. I'm going to hit W. And I'm just going to pull it off to the side. You can go either direction. I'm just going to pull it out here. We are going to end up having to put it back. So in your channel box, right here, you can see I moved it in my Translate Z. You may have moved it in your X or Y. It doesn't matter. But only move it in one direction. And if you move it in more, that's fine. Just make sure that you do not freeze the transformations on this house. We want to leave this with the transformations of the original position because this house needs to go back in place here so that we can do the color ID. Okay, so and the way we'll do that is we'll just zero this out, and if we hit 0 now, you'll see that boom, it goes right back to the original place. So that's why we want to leave it without changing the transformations. All we're doing is moving it out of the way so we can see what we're doing. And now I'm going to go ahead and start working with making some color ID materials for this. And it's going to replace all the materials that we just set up for this other house, and that's okay, all right, because that's going to be the color ID, and we're going to end up transferring them to this house. So from our duplicate house to our original house, we're going to transfer them. Now, this is also the process you would use if you're having a higher resolution model to a lower resolution model, and you're transferring detail from the higher resolution to the lower resolution. But we're just going to transfer them from the same resolution from one to the other in this lesson. Okay, so we're going to start with the floor, okay? And I'm going to hit Control 1 just so we can kind of see the floor and make sure everything is working the way we want it to. So with the floor selected, I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to assign another new material, and I'm going to also make this an Arnold standard surface. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and select the AI standard surface, and I'm going to pick a color for this one. And I'm going to select a color that is, now we're going to have to make up our own colors as we move along because we're going to be applying them to different parts of the model, but we're going to use these base colors first. So for the floor, I have this kind of magenta color. I'm going to start here on the right from that color history. We'll just apply that to it, and then we're going to name this, I believe this is magenta. It is for now. So we're going to call it magenta, and I'm also going to call it my output, and I'm going to name this one the same thing. Now this may be redundant, we may not need to do that, but it's just the habit I've gotten into to make sure I name both nodes the same name. Alright, so now we've got that one out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control 1. Control 1. There we go. And that was my floor. So now I'm going to do my walls. Control 1 again. Wow. There we go. Gotta have the mouse in there, viewport. I'm being a little bit bad example here. So this one's going to be a little more complicated. So the floor was all one color, and the reason why I did it all one color is because I have this patio that's around it. So anything that I put on my floor, even though it's going to show up on the other parts of my floor, they won't be seen. Okay, so they won't be seen on the outside because I have other geometry covering it up. If you only have that floor and you can see it, you may want to do your edges of your floor a different color. Alright, so with this one, this is where using the UVs is going to be useful. Okay, so pull up my UV editor, and remember I laid my walls out so I could see them. So I'm going to go to my UV shell, and I'm going to find where all of my outside walls are, and I believe it was these here. Excuse me. Alright, so that is it's those four on the top. And I'm going to go ahead and select these four using my UVs here. Now they're selected. I can right click, go to assign new material, select my Arnold, and I'm going to do my AI standard surface for this as well. Move my UVs out of the way. I'm going to select a color for this, and this is going to be, we'll make it this dark blue. Okay, so we're going to call this dark blue. And now the house has taken on the color of dark blue on the outside. Now, for the sake of showing you the process, I'm going to select two walls, make them one color, and select two walls and make them another color. So we have two different materials in there just to demonstrate how you can do that. Alright, so again, with my UVs selected, I'm going to select this one and this one. Those are these two walls here in my model. I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to assign a new material, another Arnold, AI standard surface, and then I am going to select a color, so I'm going back to the main node, and this one is going to be light blue. So I'm going to name it light blue. Okay, and copy that, paste it over to here, and now that one is light blue. And then I'm going to select these last two right here, something like that. It should be these adjacent ones over. Whoa, we don't want to do that. There we go. Make sure that is those two. Okay, and again, right click, assign a new material. Another Arnold AI standard surface. And let's see what color we got next. We've got this light green. We'll make them light green. Nope. Light green. All right, so now we've got light green, and this piece of it is all done. Again, I'm not worrying about the top and the bottom of the house. We move those out of the way. We're not going to texture them. They're not going to be seen. All right, so now the next piece that we want to do, let's go ahead and go Control 1, bring back our house, and let's go ahead and we're going to do the roof. And then after that, I'm going to turn you loose to do the rest of the pieces and see how you do. I'll show you what I've got when we get back. But first, let's go ahead and do the roof. And the reason why I'm doing the roof is because, remember we kind of added some edge loops in here to kind of divide up the sections of our roof. So I've got this inside house piece. I've got this underside of the roof piece. I've got this piece along the edge here. And then I've got this entire rooftop piece. So when I look at my roof, that's my UVs right here. So these pieces are the wood trim pieces along the outside of the house. So let's go ahead and go UV shell, select those, and we can see that indeed those are those pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, assign a new material, another Arnold, standard surface, and those are going to be, we haven't done yellow yet, so we'll pick those to be yellow. We'll call this one yellow. Okay. All right, so that one's done for yellow. So let's go ahead and do the next piece, which is go UV shell. We're going to do this top roof piece right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. So right click, assign new material, AI standard surface. The next one in line is red, so we'll make that red. We'll go ahead and call this one red. All right, so now we've got part of the roof done. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to object mode and go select my roof again. Control 1, hide everything else, flip this over, and we're going to do this underside here. This is the inside of the house here. These are the outside of the house. Let's just double check that real quick. And do Control 1 real quick. If we take a look at the house, yes, that is true. These two pieces are actually the outside pieces. That's because this is where that joint is. The inner, smaller pieces are these pieces inside the house. So when we do that, we want to go ahead and right-click, UV shell. Actually, we want to do face, and we're going to select these two inner faces right here. That's where the inside of the house is. So this is the ceiling inside the house. We're going to right-click, assign a new material, Arnold, AI standard surface. The next color I believe in the list here is white, so we're going to go ahead and go with white. Name this white. All right, so now we've got white all set up, and The next thing we need to do is this next under piece right here, which is everything else. So we're going to go ahead and we do a marquee select along this line here. Select those. Hold shift and do a little marquee select across there. Select those and these pieces here. So now we've got the outline around that section selected. We're going to go ahead and right click. We're going to assign a new material. Yes, you guessed it. Another Arnold AI standard surface. And we're all out of preset colors. So now we get to start making up our own colors. And I am going to select something in the kind of light pink, I think is how it's called. Let's see here. Let's go with something like that. That's a nice different color contrasting to everything else we have. So we're going to go with that. We're going to call this light pink. Hit enter. Do it here. Enter. Oops. Huh. All right. Well, let's try this again. Hit enter. There we go. We got light pink. Now that's all done. I'm going to go ahead and do a Control 1, bring everything back. I'm going to do a save real quick. You can do a Control S as well. All right, so now we've got our window frames to do, the pillars to do, and the patio area to do. I think you have watched the process enough. I'm going to go ahead and pause here. I'm going to finish up. You're going to have to make your own colors from here on out. Make sure they're nice and bright enough difference than the colors you're already using. Don't get it too close. For example, the orange, if you don't make orange light enough, it's going to be picked up as red by Quixel. I found that out the hard way. So just a little tip. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pause now, and then from here I'm going to go ahead and work on mine. You work on yours. When we come back, I'll show you what I've got, and let's go ahead and pause it. Okay, so now I'm back. I've gone ahead and made a bunch of different colors, got everything done on my house, and let's go ahead and take a look at my hyper shader. This last one, I called it brown. I don't know if it really is, but yeah, it's kind of ugly looking. Is this kind of color here? But you can see I've got a lot of different colors: dark blue, dark green, dark purple. I kind of started running out of ideas. But there's light blue, light green, light pink, magenta, medium green, orange, red, white, yellow, brown. I think those are all the colors that I've used, but everything has now been set up so that the house has all of the various colors assigned to it. So let's go ahead and select our house as a whole, and then right here in the Translate Z position, you can either do it from your channel box or from the attribute editor. Either one works. But right here, the Z, I'm going to go ahead and put it 0, hit that enter, and I'm going to put it back. And now I've got everything selected. So let's go ahead and do our colors. And again, this is going to be done kind of one piece at a time. So I'm going to show you the first couple and then let you go from there. So with my house one selected, and I'm going to go ahead and open this one up too. What we're going to do is up here under modeling at the top, we're going to hit the down arrow, and we're going to go to rendering, and then under lighting and shading, we're going to select that, and we're going to do transfer maps. Okay, and right now everything popped up, which was my mistake because I have everything selected by selecting those houses. What we want to do is we're going to do clear all right there. Okay, so now the other way to do it is go to edit and reset settings, which is probably the best thing to do. Hit edit, reset settings, put everything back to neutral. This is the target maps. If we hit the down arrow here, these are our source maps. We're going to do a diffuse, and we'll go through that process. So let's go ahead and first we're going to go with our target mesh. So that's the one that we want to apply the images to. So I'm going to just work my way down so I don't get lost. I'm going to start here at floors. Okay, so I'm going to select my floors on my house, which is the one that does not have the color ID on it. Okay, the other one, my house 1, is the one that has the color ID. And we maybe even could name it house color ID so we know which one it is if you start getting confused. But I know that my house is my original, house 1 is my duplicate, and I did all the adjustments on my house, my other house. So, and I can double check that by hitting my house here, grab it, pull it up. You can see that it is indeed the right one. All right, so you want the one that has none of the color on it. So we're going to select the house. I'm going to go to my floor, and this is my target mesh. I'm going to add selected, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and I'm going to go ahead and find my house 1 floor, and I'm going to add selected under my source meshes here, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my diffuse, and with my diffuse colors, right down here, I'm going to change this from simple house image, and okay, so again, diffuse, and then I'm going to come down here to the folder. I'm going to click on the folder, and this window is going to pop up, and it's going to ask where do you want to put these, and it usually is going to pick wherever your last setup was. Also, I didn't set my project, so that might have been a little bit of an issue here, which is bad on me. But I'm going to go ahead and put this into my project folder, okay? And I'm going to go into my projects, my simple house project, and it's going to go into images. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new folder. And this is going to be my demo color IDs. Okay, and I'm going to select that folder. I'm going to give this a name. This one is for my floor. I'm just going to underscore call it CID, so I know this is my color ID. Okay, so now the other thing I want to do is I want to change my file format from DDS to, I like using PNGs, so I'm going to select PNG, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bake this. Okay, and now if I go into that folder, where I put it, you'll see that my floor IDs are now actually that color that they were supposed to be. So I now have one of my color ID maps. All right, so I'm going to run through this a couple of times, and then I'm going to turn you loose to do it on your own, and I'll finish mine up, come back at the end, show you all the color maps I have, and then talk about the next process. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is, since I just did my, I'm going to go ahead and clear all these. I'm going to clear that. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and select my walls, which is the wall part of my house. And that's going to be, again, my top one is my house, which is this target mesh. And then my bottom one is my house 1, which has the color IDs on it. I'm going to select my walls and do add selected for that. So now add walls, okay. Again, it's going to be diffuse. Since it's already down here, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this map. I'm going to hit diffuse again. It should work, but sometimes I run into issues where it hangs up on the previous one, and then we have some problems after that. So again, it's going to go into my house IDs, my demo color ID, and I'm going to call this one my walls CID for color ID, and I'm going to change it again to PNG, and I'm going to go ahead and bake that. Double check to make sure that popped in, and it did. And it's not too bad. These gray areas may cause some issues, but this one actually came out pretty decent. Sometimes we end up with color. Okay, we do have some color bleeding. So right here where we have these color bleeding, we're going to end up having to go into Photoshop. And I'm going to get rid of this gray section too, because sometimes these are a little bit out out of the area. We have color bleeding from the portions that I didn't color ID on the model. So we're going to go into Photoshop and have to fix these. And we'll go through that process next. All right, so let me see here. The next one I want to do is my roof right here. So again, we're going to go through that same process. And this is the last one I'm going to show you because it's the same process over and over again. So I don't want to, run this video too long. And I'll just pause it and let you go from there. So again, top house, add selected. Select my duplicate house with the color IDs on it, which is my roof again. Add selected. Make sure that these are the same maps. Okay, they should have a different name on them, but they should be the same basic thing. This time I'm not going to remove this map. I'm just going to go ahead and go in here. Make sure it's going in the right spot. Give it a name. This is my roof. Okay, and then it's a PNG. I'm going to go ahead and bake it. And just double check make sure the map went in there. It did. This one's really got some problems, so we're going to have to fix that. All right, so that is the process. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause. I'm going to finish mine up, and I'll let you finish yours up, and then I'll start the video back up and show you kind of what my solution is, the number of maps I have, and show you what the color IDs look like. And you can compare yours to see if they're looking the same. And anyway, so we'll go ahead and from there. So let me go ahead and pause. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pop in again just real quick because now we're moving on to the frames. I want to make sure that we follow the process. So I'm going to select each of the frames. So my door frame, door sliding frames, my door frame here, and then each of the window frames. Just like that, okay? And then this is the wrong house. This is actually my house 1. This is my color ID house. So I got to make sure that I clear both of those out. And I'm going to add this to my source meshes right there. And then I'm going to go back up to my top one and select the correct ones for the input maps. Sorry I did that backwards. I hope I didn't confuse you. And I'm holding down the wrong button too. There we go. Holding down the control button. Selecting these individually. These are my door frames and my window frames. And those are going to be my, because this is my house, the one without the color ID, I'm going to put that in my target meshes. And it should look something like that. And that's why I kind of jump back into it because it's going to be a little bit more confusing. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit that little folder. I'm going to go ahead and call this frames again. And hit enter to save that. So now they're going to be called frames. It's PNG. I'm going to bake these and check to make sure that that came out all right. And that's this one right here. These are kind of the dark purple color. And that's what it is. So that's all of the window frames. So that's kind of the process for following that. And then with those done, I can go ahead and minimize this. The next thing I'll do is my front door. And my front door, again, will have my doorknob in it. So make sure you are clearing all when you do these. You're using your original house without the color ID as your target mesh. You're using your one with the color IDs as the color IDs, and this is your front doorknob. Okay, and they both should pop up in there. Even though I only selected the upper level, they're both in there. Okay. See, front doorknob when I select it, and then I'm just going to go ahead and call this front door. I'm trying to use the same naming conventions that I used when I made the materials for the original house, so that everything will transfer over, be a little bit more clear. Okay, and here's my front door. My doorknob is orange, my door is green, so that is correct. Okay, so we got the window frames done, the door frames done, the door's done, window frames are done. The only thing left now are the pillars. I'm going to go ahead and pause again. I think you've got this down, and then once I get this done, I'll pop back in. Okay, so now I'm back, and you can see that having got them all done, I have my floor, my window frames, door frames, my front door, my pillars, my porch, my roof, and my walls. Everything is laid out. They should look like my UVs in general. You're not going to see the UVs actually in here, but the area that's covered should be my UVs. So the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to do a little bit of cleaning up on the roof ALS or my roof right here and on my walls. So I'm going to show you that process and see how that goes. Everything else should probably pull into our ColorId into Quixel OK. But I'm going to end this video with just cleaning these up, and the next video will be us actually importing everything into Mixer and doing our materials, because that's going to be making this video even so much longer, and I think we're already kind of getting to the end here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these. I'm going to close this transfer map out. Don't forget, we're in rendering. We can be in modeling here. Let's go ahead and save everything we have, save scene. And now if you were to select your original house and pull it up, okay, and we hit 6 on the keyboard, you'll see that our original house now has the color IDs that are fairly close to what we have down here. They should almost match it, but there's a little bit of it kind of lost in the, it's like the window frames aren't quite identical, but it's pretty darn close. All right, so hit Control Z, put it back down where it was. All right, so let's go ahead and go through the Photoshop. You can also do this in GIMP. You don't need necessarily have Photoshop. You can download GIMP for free, and it works very similar to Photoshop, particularly with modifying images and photos and things like that. So I'm going to pause for a second while that's opening so I don't waste any more of your time. Okay, so it's back. I'm back. So let's go ahead and take a look at Photoshop here. So basically you want to start a new project. If you're following along in GIMP, I'm sorry I don't have GIMP up right now. I'm going to follow through this in Photoshop. Hopefully you know how to use GIMP well enough so that you can at least get in and color your color ID maps. So we're going to go ahead and create new. Okay, and there we go. All right, so what we want to do is we want to make a custom one that's going to be a 256 by 256, because that's the size of these maps that we have here. So if I look at it here in my details section, you can see that these are 256 by 256. So we're going to want them to be 256 by 256. I'm going to go ahead and call this my demo house. I'll just call it CID for color ID. All right, and then I'm just going to leave everything else pretty much alone. I have a black background here. You can choose black or white, I think. Oh, yeah, transparent as well. Okay, so anyway, I'm just going to leave it that. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. So again, 256, 256. That should be good. So now, basically, I got this little tiny spot here. I really only have 2 maps that I need to clean up. I think the rest of these are going to be okay. If I double click on this one and look at it, I don't think there's too much bleeding problems here. We could always come in and make a nice straight clean line, but because there is some bleeding between them, but I don't think it's actually interfering with either of the surfaces. So we're going to go ahead and close that one out. We're going to start with the roof, and I'm going to show you how to clean it up in the roof, and from there you could probably get an idea of how to take care of the walls. So anyway, you saw that, I just clicked and drug it into the scene, dropped it here. I'm going to hit enter to accept it. Wrong thing. Click back on Photoshop, hit enter to accept it. Now it's not rasterized. That's what that little do not enter symbol means. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to say yes, go ahead and rasterize it. And I'm going to go ahead and Control plus plus a couple of times. Now I'm going to put a layer on the top of this. So I'm going to go ahead and over here on my right hand side, if you're not familiar with Photoshop, down here on the right hand side there's this little plus button. It says create new layer. It's like a box with a plus in it. I'm just going to create this layer, and what I'm going to do is paint everything on top of that. Now, these edges were supposed to be yellow, and you can see how much they're not yellow. These are supposed to be all red. This is supposed to be kind of an all light pink color, and then that's supposed to be a white color. So I'm going to start with the yellow. Over here on the left-hand side, I have a couple color chips. I'm going to pick one of these color chips, this orange one. I'm going to click on it, and when I do that, the little color picker comes out, and I have this little eyedropper. I'm going to select the yellow color I want to use. I say OK. And then I've got this custom brush that is on here, but up here in the top you can select whatever brush you're working with. You have different brush choices over here on the right. I would pick something that is solid, that allows you to paint with it. Up here, change your size to whatever size you need it to be. And if you have a hardness choice, go ahead and max it all the way out, because we're just going to color these nice and solid. And if you have to keep repeating, running back and over it like you're coloring something in, you're probably not going to be happy. So just make it nice and easy on yourself. This particular brush already has that setting, so I'm just going to go ahead and this isn't kindergarten. You don't have to make it nice and clean on these ones up here. We're just wanting them to be yellow. So this whole section, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of paint it yellow. And even this line right here, this is all supposed to be yellow. So we get rid of all the color that is not yellow up here on the roof pieces. I didn't need to paint this section up here, but since I'm at it anyway, I might as well just go ahead and just nice and run it all the way across. Not that it's a big issue. There's nothing over here. And I'm going to run this across over here. And I'm going to leave myself that little space in between as much as I can. Paint this all in solid down here. Because that's really the end of the UV for this section. I want to leave myself a little bit of space, so as I do these other ones, I know how far I can go up. Because I know this is bleeding in right in this area right here. It's bleeding in on my red, and I can see that over here. And this is bleeding in on my mauve, or whatever the color this is. So I want to paint that color up to the very edge there. So again, I'm going to choose my yellow, and since I already have red, I'm just going to go ahead and pick the mauve color. I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to hit, so in order to, I guess I didn't really cover that, but Control++ goes in. I'm going to push my brush settings back in by hitting that little button right there. And I can now scroll up and down using my middle mouse button to scroll up and down. But Control++ zooms in, Control- zooms out. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this area in right here. And I'm trying to avoid areas that's going to bleed in too much, just because at this point I don't want to have additional colors when I import it in. Now, one thing I do know with my roof is that I created it so that there is this kind of line. The line is actually inside the wall. And if you take a look at this section right in here, we have this sort of varying shades of pink and white right in here. We could go in and fix these, and we may have to, but I think what I want to do first is see what it looks like when I try to texture it, because I might be doing some extra work that isn't necessary. So I'm going to not mess with this area right here because I think it's going to be buried in the wall. Now over here, I do want to fix this section here between the red and the purple, mauve, whatever color this is. I named it, I can't remember what I called it. This could be a little bit tedious. Again, we can go in more if we need to. You can also change the scale again up here. So I'm going to try to pick this halfway point between the two. And depending on the brush that you're using, you may It may go easy, it may be kind of hard. And Control Z to undo things. So when I paint, I usually paint and let go so that if I make a mistake, I don't have to go too far back. All right, I think you kind of get the idea what I'm doing here. You don't need to see me literally paint this. So I'm going to go ahead and pause. I'm going to get this cleaned up, and then I'll bring up the walls one. I'll talk about it and clean that one up. Kind of get you started, and then that'll be it for this. Okay, so here you can see that I completed this. Basically, I just painted it right up to the edge so that I have a straight line between the two. I know that somewhere in between here are where the UVs are separated, but these are actually really close to each other because of the way they've been separated out. The actual straight edges are up here somewhere, but wanted to make sure that this worked the best we could so we don't have too many imported colors that we're not going to use. Alright, so now that this is done, what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and go to File. I'm going to save this. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. Put it on my computer just for the heck of it. This is my color house CID. I'm going to go ahead and save, say OK. Go back up to File, Export, and then we just do a quick export as a PNG. And now this is actually for my roof. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this roof, and I'm going to call this updated. I'm going to leave my original one in here. I don't want to, and this is in the wrong spot, so let's go ahead and find the actual spot where it goes. My demo color in here. I'm going to leave my original one alone. I'm just going to call this roof updated. We're going to save it into that. Okay, and now let's go ahead and take a look at the next one we want to do. So we're going to go ahead and go up here to File. We're going to do New. We're going to do another custom one. This one, we're going to go ahead, and this is the walls. So I'm just going to go ahead and call walls underscore updated. And I'm going to go ahead and create this. It needs to be 256 by 256. Hit create. And now I'm going to go back to my thumbnails here. I'm going to pull out my walls CID here. Hit enter to set that. And again, Control plus plus. You need to click on it and say OK to rasterize the object. And all of this up here can be painted blue because it's that dark blue. This is where we're going to get into a little bit of an issue. We need to make sure that we paint this up as far as we can for the light blue and for the green over here. And so this all should be green, this all should be light blue, and dark green. Pretty much the same way we did the walls. Again, I'm going to pause. I'll come back. I'll show you what my solution is, and we'll wrap this video up at that point. But yeah, before I wander off too far, again, down here, the color thumbnails, you can click on this and select the little color you want. I'm going to pick the blue. I'm going to say OK. And then say you wanted to also jump back and forth between these other colors. There's this little arrow right here. I can hit this little arrow and it switches the colors up. I'm going to change that thumbnail to one of these other colors down here. I'm going to say OK. And then when I get down to here to painting this green, I'm going to change this dark blue to this green, and then I can switch back and forth as I paint. So that'll make things a lot easier. Again, hit the little arrow to switch back and forth, and then you can just paint. All right, so good luck. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so now I'm back. I got done painting the walls in. I just went for some straight lines and colored everything in to make sure I got it 100%. I'm way outside of the lines, but that's okay. The UVs will work just fine. If you just color right around your UVs, that'll be okay as well, as long as you make sure you completely covered them where they need to be completely covered. Okay, so again, we're going to go ahead and save this. Go, and pretty much the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and export it as a quick PNG back into my images folder, my demo ColorId, and this is going to be my walls updated. And that's going to be it for my ColorIDs. Now I have the updated two that I needed to update, and then I have the other ones that should be okay the way they are, since they're pretty much just one color, with the exception of the doorknobs. We need to see if this is going to work out okay right here. I think it's going to be alright though. I don't think there was that much bleeding over. So that is going to be it for this video. And we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to do next time. Next time we're going to take all of these ColorId maps that are right here, and along with the model, and we're going to export the model into Quixel, and then we're going to import these ColorId maps that should correspond to the UVs that we've done, and then we'll be able to get our material done from there. Okay, so again, if you've missed any of this project, you can catch the previous 4 videos at my animation putting on the Fritz 3D visualization, and check that out. You can see the previous videos for making a simple house, how we got this far, making our UVs and everything. And then the next stage, like I said, is actually putting some textures on this. We're nearing the end of this, maybe only 1 or 2 more videos, and then we should wrap this one up. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. If you like what you saw, please like the video, and please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.